when it came on, I didn't know what to expect. I had to stop this and go pop me some popcorn. I'm excited, bro. God bless you, big brother. God bless you. I just wanted to share that. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what I'm getting ready to see.
As a black child growing up in the 50s, we were still subjugated to separate movie theaters. And by the time Hollywood recognized our spending power, they allowed us into the theaters, but never allowed us any major roles besides maids and images of scared black men. Which is why many African American men gravitated towards karate films in the 70s, because for the first time we were seeing images of non-white heroes like Bruce Lee, mixed in with Chuck Norris and John Saxon. And in later years, Steven Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme were mixed in with Jet Li and Jackie Chan. In the 70s, Hollywood made a feeble attempt to add a handful of black karate stars. My personal education of the unknown and forgotten legends started when I had the opportunity to meet karate legend Mychal "Look Up" Sledge. This is his journey.
Some are born with a silver spoon. Some are born with a rusty spoon. Destiny is greater than the surface of the spoon. On June 9, 1957, Mychal Sinclair Sledge was born.
Probably the earliest sign that Mychal was born to be a fighter was the fact that he was born as a premature child.
During the 50s, I witnessed the use of drugs that appeared to be promising and yet turned out to be lethal and damaging for many infants. Dr. William Silverman, father of neonatal intensive care.
Think about this. In the year 2018, black infants were 2.5 times more likely to die due to prematurity. And yet in 1957, Teresa Johnson Sledge refused to give up on Mychal. So the question is, did she know that this premature baby was going to be special? Or was it all built in her southern roots?
Cheraw, South Carolina, was a small southern town, historically known for housing British soldiers during the Revolutionary War, its strategic placement during the Civil War, and its immense cotton fields.
When you mention terms like cotton fields or picking cotton to the average African American of a certain age, they think of two things. They think of hard work and they think of slavery.
As a young kid, Teresa Johnson once picked cotton in Cheraw, and like many other black people from the South, including Cheraw native Dizzy Gillespie, she moved to the North for a better way of life, to avoid the cotton fields, and more importantly, to avoid Southern racism.
Now, years later, after she moved to New York, she made sure that Mychal spent many of his summers in Cheraw to understand the struggle of his ancestors by seeing the red dirt and cotton fields.
As a young Teresa Johnson left Cheraw for a better way of life, she had no idea of some of the difficulties that her future family would face under the bright lights of New York City. African Americans living in southern states migrated to various northern cities. During the 50s, Teresa's family moved to Brooklyn, New York, and a few years later, Harlem, New York. Many African Americans from the South had a strong desire to live in Harlem. Because from 1920 to 1940, Harlem, New York was the cultural center of attention for many Americans. To understand the history of Harlem, you have to understand the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance was an intellectual and cultural revival of African American music, dance, art, fashion, literature, theater, and politics.
Put this in perspective. Imagine today, every great black entertainer, singer, dancer, comedian, poet, and political mind all performing in a small area. That was Harlem.
As James Baldwin once said, walk down any street in Harlem and see what we, this nation, have become.
This neighborhood is now a hotspot, a dumping ground for used, dirty drug
This is
needles
Harlem.
left in
I don't know
garbage
where
cans.
it coming from. I just get it from whoever got it.
Alcoholism, street
We
gangs.
reported on the discovery of more than
From
200
drug
used
overdoses.
drug needles.
This is Harlem.
From a drug overdose every 5 minutes.
Overdose deaths
There's an
soared.
investigation of the heroin
This
epidemic.
is Harlem.
Broken families, rampant street crime, the worst housing this side of Calcutta.
Selling drugs became profitable, which led to many young men in Harlem idolizing the drug kingpins, without realizing it was destroying the community through crime, murder, and prison time.
A child's mind is like one of those old cameras. They can sense fear, danger, dysfunction, and even though Michael's parents were giving him love every day, they couldn't fully protect him from what he sensed growing up in Harlem.
At the age of 10 years old, Mychal had experienced more tragedy in his community than some will see in a lifetime.
Now, I love America, don't get me wrong, but we all share in the blame to allow children to see racism, police brutality, stepping over heroin addicts on your way to school. And for those who judge and stand back saying, what about his parents? His parents were hardworking, God-fearing, loving parents, but they couldn't protect him 24/7. You see, you gotta understand that racism in the 60s didn't allow you to just pick up and move to a nicer area. The nice areas you were not allowed to move to, even if you had the money to move there. Racism in the 60s meant you had to stick with the same job you had. Your kids had to survive. They had to fight every day. And that wasn't happening for the Sledge family. Growing up in the inner city can be terrifying for some boys because bullying can be more than bullying. The level of pain, anger, and hate that a kid can be exposed to at an early age is mind-boggling. For those that didn't grow up in the hood and think it's a simple case of teasing or a stolen cupcake, you're sadly mistaken. And for those that grew up in the hood thinking this is what makes you tough, this is what makes you a man, standing up to bullies, you've been duped into thinking violence to children is okay. Remember, Michael was born a preemie baby, meaning he was always 2 years physically behind all of his peers. So when tiny Michael got slapped in the face every day, when he got his hats and his bike stolen, when he came home with bloody shirts, what was he supposed to do? Tell his parents and be labeled a punk? Tell his teachers and be labeled a snitch? Or fight back? Well, one day Michael did fight back, and he actually won. And now that Michael had stood up to the bully, his consolation prize for beating the bully was the bully's family of older brothers and sisters started smacking and slapping Michael around every day. As a young child, Michael Sledge faced way more than bullying.
There were no superheroes coming to save Michael. Batman ain't coming to Harlem. A true king can teach a prince to know the difference between walking and kneeling. Mychal's father, James Lewis Sledge, taught his son Mychal how to pray on his knees every day of his life. He also taught Mychal how to dress, as seen in many of Mychal's childhood pictures. You can call it fate or the hand of God, but James Lewis Sledge was about to introduce young Mychal to something he knew nothing about that would change Mychal's life forever.
I'm tired of marching. I'm tired of marching for something that should have been mine. It burned.
Most children growing up in the inner city didn't have access to simple things like fresh air, grass, or even seeing a tree. So Mr. Sledge decides to take his family on a chartered bus to the famous Peg Leg Bates Resort in Cohonson, New York. Now remember, because of the time period, the Peg Leg Bates Resort was probably the only resort that allowed black people to enjoy resort life.
For young Mychal, going to this resort was the equivalent of Dorothy visiting the land of Oz. Of course, he was exposed to the scenery, which he never saw in Harlem, but more importantly, he watched a martial arts demonstration that made him instantly fall in love. When Mychal returned to Harlem, he was never the same. At the age of 10 years old, Mychal knew that Batman wasn't real, but he was about to find out his hand speed was very real. Mychal found his passion during a time when the entire country was burning up in flames.
The President's Advisory Commission on Civil Disorder warned that race hatred threatened to tear this country apart. In more than 100 cities, violence broke out.
It's hard to believe that almost every city had a riot.
I'm tired of marching.
Forget about Harlem burning down. Young Mychal saw the entire country getting ready to burn down.
In the Civil War, 186,000 black men fought in the military service, and we were promised freedom, and we didn't get it. In World War II, 350,000 black men fought, and we were promised freedom, and we didn't get it. In World War II, 850,000 black men fought, and we were promised freedom, and we didn't get it. In the Korean conflict, a so-called police action, a war, we fought there, and we didn't get it. Now here we go with the damn Vietnam War, and we still ain't getting nothing but racist police brutality, etc.
Young Mychal's world was filled with crime, riots, and bullies, but he never forgot the karate demonstration. Now all he had to do was one thing: focus. Listen to me, young man. All you got to do is pray.
Listen, old man, I feel you, but we need more than prayer. We've been praying for a long time.
But I have a dream.
Mychal Sledge. Sledge wins the gold medal.
Mychal Sledge ganó la medalla de oro.
El señor Sledge es el campeón del mundo.
Listen to me. There are so many great karate living legends, and Mychal Sledge is one of them.
I have some very sad news for all of you, and that is that Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight in Memphis.
Dr. Martin Luther King, the apostle of nonviolence in the civil rights movement, has been shot.
Unfortunately, in New York's Harlem, it's raining tonight. Weather has a great deal to do with violence.
Many people have been asked over the years, how come you can't get past slavery? And the answer to that is, many people have never gotten past Dr. King's murder, and the Sledge family was no different.
The assassination of Dr. King left a deep wound in the soul of the Sledge family.
At the time of Dr. King's death, Mychal's mother was dealing with pressure beyond pressure. She was 4 months pregnant, dealing with an extremely difficult pregnancy. And now you got Mychal taking up karate for the first time at the age of 10 years old. But because of her strong Christian values, she wasn't particularly happy with Mychal taking up karate. All the while, she has to worry about her son being bullied every day at school. Now you take all of that and add in Dr. King's murder, which basically devastated all of Black America. And I'm not sure if America ever recovered from Dr. King's murder, but I can tell you one thing, the Sledge family never forgot Dr. King.
On August 7th, 1968, Mrs. Sledge gave birth to her second child. She named him Martin Lewis Sledge, in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King. The time has come for young Mychal to face his fears. But could he handle the intense martial arts training that was special and unique to Harlem? For centuries, karate has been practiced for several reasons: self-defense, exercise, discipline, and structure. But in areas like Harlem, it was taught from a position of pure survival, which is why it was so important for Mychal to be taught by Master James Cooper. Grandmaster James Cooper's impact on Mychal's life was enormous.
Let me tell you about James Cooper. He is a martial arts legend and a great teacher, but he was much more than that. James Cooper is the true definition of being a mentor. He not only taught Mychal about karate, but he cared enough about kids to take them on fishing trips and to the movies. He showed kids and the community that love extends beyond the scope of martial arts. James Cooper saved a lot of lives, and Mychal was blessed and lucky to have him in his life.
Mychal Sledge. Oh my God, Mychal Sledge just won the gold medal.
La medalla de oro.
Most champions have 3 common characteristics: dedication, heart, and most of all, being blessed. For young Mychal Sledge, he had the dedication, he had the heart, but most of all, he was blessed with super fast hands.
In the mass murder of film star Sharon Tate,
of North Vietnamese and Viet Cong troops.
A photograph from the air of that Woodstock Music Festival. Young people.
1969 was a year of miracle and strange occurrences. For New Yorkers, the New York Miracle Mets became champs. The New York Knicks became champs. A man landed on the moon, but on that very same day, Dr. Martin Luther King's brother, A.D. King, was found dead in his own swimming pool, and yet he was a very good swimmer. Racism had reared its ugly head again. Though most Americans never knew about the mysterious circumstances behind A.D. King's death, it didn't stop Mychal, because that same year, he was about to launch into one of the greatest careers in the history of martial arts.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can please have your attention, Greatness 5 would like to present a retrospective look at one of the all-time greats. He was a black belt at the age of 15, national champion at the age of 17. He won 5 national championships in 5 different weight classes, listed in the World Almanac for 5 straight years, a member of the AAU national team that traveled the world. In 2014, he was inducted into the AAU Hall of Fame. Let's bring him out, Mychal "Look Up" Sledge.
You know the most amazing thing about Mychal's career? From 1968 to 1983, Mychal won more first place trophies than probably any human being that's ever walked the earth. If you don't believe me, take a look at this picture. This is a picture of his mother and father's living room. Where do you sit down? Where do you eat? It's nothing but trophies.
I took up the world!
Hard to believe that the small child, who was once afraid to walk no more than 2 blocks in Harlem, would be able to visit the entire world. But more importantly, because of his fast hands, he was able to shake up the entire world.
I shook up the world! I shook up the world! I shook up the world!
Mychal, aka Lookup, had speed that was legendary.
There are many old-time martial arts experts that honestly believe Mychal had the fastest hands they had ever seen.
Today's if Lookup hit you with that reverse punch, oh Lord!
Mychal lived up to his nickname Lookup, because if you blinked your eyes, you would be looking up at him from the floor.
If you're of a certain age bracket, there is no denying that Mychal Lookup Sledge was absolutely one of the greatest of all time. Think about it. 1968 to 1983, this man dominated the sport. Incredible. Mychal will be the first to tell you that he's not the only one that's been forgotten over the years. The history of karate tends to forget people as time moves on.
And just like that, it was over. Mychal finished his career by bringing home 2 gold medals, but more importantly, he relishes the time he was voted AAU Athlete of the Year in New York with Mr. and Mrs. Sledge and young Martin in attendance. Martin was named after a king, and now his big brother was his king.